Of intensifying trade wars, we are now joined here on the broadcast virtually by economist Churchill Ogutu with the IC Group. Good morning, Churchill. Lovely having you here on the broadcast, and many thanks for making time. What should be the priority areas for the president in this four-day visit to Beijing?
Good morning, Ayub. Evidently, the priority areas by President Ruto will be focusing on the infrastructure development, as the report item has mentioned, and also on just increasing the relationship between China and Kenya. China is Kenya's largest trade partner and also the largest bilateral lender. Kenya. So obviously the priority areas will be focusing on those three themes, and also just to pivot back, the forum on China-Africa cooperation that was held in September, there were 10 partnership action plans that were mentioned. So this is one of the first visits by an African state after that summit by President Ruto. And I think that it will also center on some of those other partnership actions, things such as a green agenda and some partnership cooperation, global South cooperation.
Yeah, and let's talk about that you have mentioned. And this is the Belt and Road Initiative, which China is seeking to galvanize partners across the world, and in times of trade war with the Americans. How key is Kenya and Africa in particular in this cause for the Chinese to advance and further strengthen their footing in the African continent?
Yeah, for sure, Kenya plays a pivotal role within the Belt and Road Initiative. And based on that, so we could expect that China will continue to develop that particular relationship, more so with China on the East African coast, to harness that development. And on the back of that also, I'm seeing that China will be quite cautious even in its approach with a country such as Kenya. We are looking at some of the engagements that they have had with other countries within the Belt and Road Initiatives hasn't worked out quite well. We've seen that there's been some defaults in a number of countries such as Zambia and also Ethiopia, and also some renegotiations of debt with Angola. So in as much as we expect that there will be that continued relationship, I think that even going forward, we'll be quite cautious as a basket.
Okay, we apologize for the technical glitch there in getting the submissions by Churchill Ogutu, who is an economist with the IC Group, talking about the visit by President William Ruto to China, and that his arrival, which we had captured, received by the Chinese state officials in Beijing, and that includes, of course, the reception thereafter. In his company were the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi, who is as well the Foreign Affairs Cabinet Secretary, and First Lady Mama Rachel Ruto, among the other leaders of the government who have accompanied the President. Churchill, are you with us?
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. So you had a point. Please proceed.
I don't know at what point I lost you, but the point I was trying to point is that China will also be cautious in terms of its engagement with Kenya, in terms of the in terms of financing, just based on the lessons that it has learned with some of the other African borrowers that in the past, the defaults that from Zambia and Ethiopia, and also the debt negotiations that it is undertaking with Angola. So it will be some cautiousness even amidst this whole Belt and Road Initiative engagements with Africa.
And Churchill, how timely is this, given that this state visit is coming against the backdrop of stagnating revenue streams and high debt servicing costs for Kenya as well, a budget that is forthcoming, deficits certainly to be filled here and there, and the fact that this financial year is ending without a finance act, given that the bill was rejected. How timely is this? And on one hand, is it not then a continuity of the begging bowl culture that President William Ruto pledged to end?
I think it's timely in the sense that it's coming amidst the global tit-for-tat war between China and the US. So, from a Kenyan perspective, it's just trying to diversify its sources of financing, just looking at the East. And also, it's coinciding with the ongoing IMF and World Bank talks. We know what happened with the last program, IMF program, which Kenya was not able to complete the final review. So, it's quite timely in that sense. But then again, in terms of the budget, yes, you mentioned a few points there in terms of the finance bill that was shelved last year. We are still in the process of the budget making for the next financial year, end of this month. So sometime next week, we'll be able to get to see the spending plan. And also after that, we'll be able to see a potential finance bill 2025. So that's something that is still in the pipeline in the course of this financial year as we pivot to the next financial year. But having said that, also there's the element of financing because more likely than not is that the spending plan tends to be higher than the revenues that we are able to amass, the tax revenue and the non-tax revenue. So we can't run away from borrowing. So it depends with the nature of borrowing that even amidst this visit by President Ruto to China, whether it will be towards the project financing. I know there's some huge projects in the pipeline that needs to be funded. So, and also the interest, the servicing of that particular debt. So it's quite timely in that sense, but it will also be incumbent upon the negotiators of potential financing to at least to ensure that we get into some more sustainable financing, even as we engage with China.
Yeah, and how does this then offer, and what are the specific outputs for economic growth to fix our productivity problem, given that in many instances it's a case of us borrowing from them, but raise the bar and make the relationship the partners of equal in terms of trade and import-export that balances each other, rather than the traditional red carpets that are followed by money, which then paying that, and then to pay that up becomes more burdensome on the taxpayers.
Yeah, as it is right now, the trade relationship between Kenya is lopsided, favoring China, basically on the large imports that we get from China. So that's the lopsidedness nature of from the trade perspective, and potentially there could be some benefits if you start looking at investments. We've seen some forays of Chinese investments into the country in the real estate, in the retail sector. So gradually there's that kind of investments, but potentially for areas of benefits could also be within the green agenda, where China is quite a key global player when it comes to the green revolution. So that's something that potentially will be beneficial, and it also ties to one of the things that was mentioned, one of the 10 action plans that was mentioned, and also some of the initiatives which had some financing of that summit that was held in September. So I think that will be an area for win-win for between Kenya and China, those kind of engagements, amidst also what's playing out in the global arena, this tit-for-tat trade wars between China and the US. So there is some scope for having some mutual benefit out of this trip here.
Yeah. And when asked, President William Ruto said Kenya is not facing either the East or the West, but forward. However, how does then Kenya immune itself from the geopolitical realities of the modern world?
Yeah, it's one of those things that the objects of this visit will be viewed from that angle. But I think at the end of the day, it's pretty much Kenya is just trying to diversify itself. There's some benefits that Kenya is getting in its relationships with the US, so that we can't run away from it. There's also the strategic trade and investment partnership that was hammered between President Ruto's administration and also the previous Biden administration. So that is still ongoing. And also the regional hub, diplomatic hub, the military base that Kenya is offering to the US, and also the strategic position of Kenya in the region. So that is the engagement that we are having with the US. And also if we pivot to the East, least we are looking at the trade, the trade benefits that we're getting from China being a major player, and also the kind of project financing, China being the largest bilateral creditor to Kenya. We can't run away from them. So I think from how I'm viewing it, this visit is just something that is beneficial to Kenya, and the kind of engagements that we're having, it's quite beneficial, not playing one for another. We've heard from the Trump administration that even the ongoing negotiations around the trade tariffs, that they will want to, as they engage with countries safe, such as Kenya, they will want now Kenya not to have engagements with China. And that's something that China has come quite strongly to condemn those kind of actions. So it will be incumbent upon countries such as Kenya to be quite independent. These wars are between these two superpowers, but not to be embroiled within this kind of wars here.
Yeah, and one final question here. Engagements will also center around regional peace and security. And Kenya has made significant diplomatic and military investments in the region to restore order and stability. How does then this further bringing the Chinese aspect of it, given that it isn't as invested as the Americans are, given that Washington has over more than 720 military bases across the world? How does Kenya play this card of the diplomacy and its military in balancing off the interests of the Americans and the Chinese?
Yeah, from a strategic position, we find that China has been hands-off, unlike the US. So in terms of existing military security operations, we haven't seen much forays from China. But that doesn't mean that even going forward, we may not even get some kind of support, one form or another, from China. We may not get the military bases from military coming from China to set up bases in Africa. I haven't seen it elsewhere. But from in terms of security cooperation, that was one of the other partnership plans that China mentioned during that Africa-China forum. So this probably may start playing out in the next couple of years. It's not there right now, but probably we could see that security will be quite dominant. And remember that as China's investment is increasing, not only in Kenya, but also in Africa, across the Belt and Road Initiative countries, we could see some form of hedging, and that's where security comes into play. So I may not discount it even going forward, that there could be some form of security cooperation between China and Africa, which is somewhat resembling what we have with the US.
Churchill, thank you. Much appreciated for your time here, and many thanks for your input here on Daybreak. Thank you. Later in the day, the president will deliver a keynote address at Peking University, where he is set to highlight Africa's vision for inclusive growth, leadership, and deeper South cooperation, as well as the aligning of high-quality the Belt and Road Initiative cooperation with Kenya's national development priorities, focusing on building a robust industrial and logistics hub for East Africa. That is part of his 4-day state visit to China, where he will be, of course, engaged in bilateral talks with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. You're watching Daybreak. Thanks for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. When we get back from the break, we turn our attention on our governance space and the perspectives from the civil society, including how we are progressing with our governance. We'll be joined by Grace Wangeshi, who is the Executive Director at IMLU, that's Independent Medical and Legal Unit. Cornelius Oduor is the Deputy Executive Director, the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Demas Kiprono, the Deputy Executive Director, ICJ Kenya, as well as Suba Churchill, who is the Executive Director, the Kenya National Civil Society Center, as we take stock of the governance space in the country, which borders on the rule of law, constitutionalism, and the principles of good governance. All that after the break here on the broadcast. Stay tuned.